I'm Catherine Dunlop, and I am from Discovery Education, and I have the privilege, and I mean the privilege, of working with industry and bridging industry with classrooms, with educators to bring real-world relevant content to students. And today we're here really to talk about preparing the next generation for an AI economy. I'm also a mom of 4 Gen Zers, and I gotta tell you, I don't know other parents out there how you're feeling about this whole AI movement. It's moving fast. My kids are a little freaked out and not really sure about what the future holds for them or where they should be focused. So really excited to have this conversation today to talk about this AI movement. And I'm excited to have Nakia here. I will say Nakia just jumped out of an Uber 45 minutes ago. She came in from the Phoenix airport, so she made it. So excited to have Nakia here and Alejandro as well from Verizon. So 2 industry partners doing some really interesting work around AI and investing in students and education and really leaning into this work in a very meaningful way. So we want to talk about that today. I also, when Andrew spoke this morning about the Unity framework, one of the things that really comes to mind for me is navigation. And you will not walk away today with hearing all the answers because we don't have it figured out. But what we need to do is come together as industry, nonprofits, communities to try and lean into this work and figure out what we need to do to help educators lean into this work and really prepare our future workforce. So a lot of uncertainty, but I think there's a lot of interesting things that are happening, and I really encourage you to follow up with myself or with Nakia or Alejandro if you have ideas or want to kind of figure out how you might be able to help and lean into this work. So with that, I'm going to pass to you, Nakia, just for a quick intro, and I would like you to do, when you think about AI, the AI economy, and education, what comes to mind and why? And the other thing I just want to quickly mention is both Alejandro and Nakia are former educators, so they bring a really unique perspective to this conversation. So they're not just from the industry, they also have that educator perspective, which I think is really great. So Nakia, I'll pass to you.
Awesome, thank you. Howdy, y'all. I did just arrive about 45 minutes ago. Does anybody in here work for American Airlines?
There is someone. There is someone here.
There is someone. I have a bone to pick with you. But a little bit about me. I was a classroom teacher, a campus administrator, and the director of academics in Central Texas at Austin ISD. And super passionate about the K-12 space. I transitioned from that into the corporate world, and I managed the skilling programs that I'll talk about a little bit in just a few minutes. And then I currently have transitioned into a role that I originally started with at Dell as an education strategist, supporting our customers in the K-12 space. And so I absolutely am thrilled to have all of you in this room who are trying to figure out ways to support our communities and our future workforce. And to answer your question, I would say when we think about AI and preparing students, it's not preparing students for AI. It's preparing students for the things that don't exist, right? There's always going to be something new, something big. And we can't say, I need you to be an expert in AI. I need you to be an expert in Google. Do you guys remember when Ask Jeeves came out?
Yeah.
I don't think we have any Ask Jeeves experts in the room because that was the big thing at the time. And so I think we all have to be mindful about what are we doing to support communities with getting kiddos ready for the future to be active contributors to our society.
Alejandro, how about you? You want to talk a little bit about your role at Verizon?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everyone. Alejandro Lozano here, and I'm a senior manager at Verizon working on the responsible business team. And I have the privilege really to lead our virtual education programming. So a lot of programs, some in partnership with Discovery Education that are longstanding, where we really think about the digital divide and how we can bridge the digital divide with resources, really with the unique features that we bring as a telecommunications company at Verizon. So that's really the lens that we approach this work from. But my background, I started off as an educator. I taught both at the elementary grade level. I taught 4th grade. And then I always like to joke that I skipped past middle school and went to go teach high school. I did that for a bit and then found my way into education program management. I did that for some time and then eventually found my way to the corporate world. But I know we were talking about this earlier, but I think it's great to have former educators or people that worked in the education space doing this work, because I can count the number of times that I, bring the educator voice to the table, and I'm able to talk about, when somebody throws out an idea, I'll say that won't work for an educator because of X, Y, Z, or these are the things that we need to care for in order for this to be something that educators can use and that will really benefit students. So I'll probably continue to bring that up, but that's always something that's top of mind for me when we're talking about programs and resources.
Yeah, I think too, Alejandro, when I think about from a parent's perspective, when we think about digital wellness, mental health, there's a lot of things that come to mind around how we need to help educate students, parents too, about digital safety and responsibility. Can you talk a little bit about the work that Verizon's done there around digital citizenship?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a whole program around digital wellness. And a big part of that work is centered around the Digital Citizenship Initiative, which we're a part of with Discovery Education. And it's really a fantastic initiative where we collaborated to build resources, set up this initiative where there's tons of lesson plans, videos to really demystify digital citizenship. And more recently, we've expanded into a focus on AI, right? We have a series of videos, short lesson plans also to really build foundational knowledge on what artificial intelligence is and how it can be used. Also, elevating some of the risks, some of the things that we need to be mindful of, right? If you're an educator in a school, you're probably hesitant about bringing AI tools, rightfully so. So you're thinking about how can I make this safe, right? What can I bring in and use with my students? What's appropriate? How can I teach my students what things not to tell a chatbot, because it might use it for training data or other things. So a lot of things that we're just keeping in mind, and we're really focusing on accessibility, making sure there's no paywall, right? Everything that we've put together is available for free and very accessible.
Yeah, so if you're a parent out there, check out some of the Verizon resources, because there's a lot of great tools out there to help you navigate the parental world when it comes to technology and phones. I wish I had that when my kids were younger. But so Nakia, from an educator perspective and from your work at Dell, when you think about durable skills and the gap that exists today in terms of preparing students for the future workforce, like what are some of the things you're working on at Dell that's helping with that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. At Dell, we really do believe in preparing kids for the workforce. And so what that looks like is we have 2 signature programs in the K-12 space. We are launching a 3rd one, but the first one I'll talk about is Girls Who Game. And it is a program that brings STEM awareness to young girls in grades 4 through 8 to expose them to STEM careers, STEM curriculum that they might not have access to. And this also will increase their likelihood to join that type of career in the future. So the other thing that we do at Dell is we have our student tech crew, and I always like to brag on this program because it teaches kids hands-on repair skills for technology, specifically Dell devices. But when we think about AI, you need to have that computer to be able to do AI. And so there are some skills that we have to provide to students so that way those jobs don't become obsolete.
That is amazing work and really important work for young girls as well, especially when it comes to STEM. When you think about cross-sector collaboration, what are some of the things that you see that folks in the room could think about as they want to maybe lean into this work? You're both from very large organizations, so I think there's some ideas like how can people take baby steps to really make a difference in this space?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's 2 things I will say. You talked about your curriculum being available and free to all. That's our partnership with Discovery Education. We have what we call the Tech Career Circuit, where our curriculum is available on the site, and it's complimentary, and teachers and educators can access it whenever they want to do that. The other thing I will say is we didn't decide to create these signature programs in isolation or in a silo. We developed Girls Who Game in partnership with Microsoft and Intel. The 3 big organizations decided there's a gap. We don't have a strong pipeline of women in STEM, so what can we do to change that? And so that's how Girls Who Game was created. 5 years ago. When we also think about our student tech crew, we developed that in COVID. Campuses went one-to-one overnight and students needed their devices, but we also saw kiddos can break things pretty easily. So we had to figure out how can we support those IT teams, and that's how we developed our student tech crew program alongside school district leaders. So there are a ton of things that can be done, but I will say that you need to start small and you need to be in it for the long run. We as big organizations cannot go into communities and say, this is what we will do for you. We have to partner with communities and tell them, or ask them, what can we do to support you? And then we also need to be there to help them sustain that. We can't go in and throw some money at you and give you this project and not give you the resources, trainings, or tools so that you can do it for the long run, but we have to guide you. And so I like to give you the analogy of it should be a cupcake and not a wedding cake, right? Don't think you can fix all of the problems. I know at Dell I can't fix all of the problems, but there are some things that we are going to be strategic about, and I think that if you think about it like that for your communities, how can you work with them, start small, and help them sustain it over time?
Yeah, I think Munir spoke this morning and kind of challenging us on looking at even our competitors or where it might feel a little odd to be able to partner with folks that we might feel like are a little bit competitive, but I think we do all have to come together to really address some of these challenges that we need to prepare students for, and I think it's really a great through line there in terms of what we need to be doing. Alejandro, when you think about you're a former educator, and you think about the pace, like I don't think we've ever seen a technological movement at this pace. And education doesn't quite move as quickly. And so what are some of the things that come to mind for you from your work at Verizon and from an educator lens about what we could be doing to help match that pace, or at least help prepare the future workforce and help teachers lean into that for students?
Yeah, no, I think that it's definitely advancing at a very quick pace. Speaking from an employee of Verizon, right, at the corporate level, we have a lot of initiatives for employees to really adopt these AI tools. And we mostly use Gemini. Obviously, that's going to vary by different organization, but that's a really big push by industry. So one thing that I worry about is if schools are not adopting these tools or not adopting policies to kind of make sure that these tools are safe for students and are being embedded, the students are really going to fall behind. And I think I mentioned the digital divide earlier. I think I can bring that up again and think about, we had the digital divide when it comes to connectivity. Now with AI, it'll be about AI literacy, AI skilling. So I think it's really important that schools do find ways to integrate AI literacy into the curriculum to make sure that students feel confident, and students get these skills, and we don't have a divide between the haves and the have-nots, which I think we've seen in the past, and I want to make sure that we definitely don't repeat that in the future.
I think that's a really important question. So I actually have experience. So my kids, during the pandemic, we decided to up our 4 teenagers and move them to a farm in Vermont. They hated me and my husband. So they were in a very well-resourced school in Washington, D.C. So they had a lot of access to information and tools, and their teachers were well-funded. And we moved to a Title I school area in Vermont, and I got to experience as a parent what that was like. But they had resources at home from their dad and I. But I worry that this digital divide, if we don't lean in as nonprofits and industry and lean into communities, that divide is going to get even larger. And I think that that's a responsibility. I don't know if you have some thoughts, Nakia, from a Dell perspective, how you're approaching that.
Absolutely. It will get bigger. And at the end of the day, as educators, it's our responsibility to give kiddos access and opportunities. As a teacher, I like to use the analogy of there should be windows and mirrors in your classroom. You should see yourself reflected in that experience, and you should see things outside of your lived experience. And so when we think about AI and students having access to this tool, it is preparing students at a much rapid rate to jobs that they want, applying to colleges, whatever it may be, and the kiddos who don't have access to those tools are not going to be able to keep up. I will say I am on a co-committee for Womankind, and we mentor women around the world in underserved communities, and we are teaching them digital inclusion skills, digital literacy, and it is an example of how well resourced we are here, the privilege I have as an educator and living in the United States, to women in Kenya, who I'm teaching them what their digital presence could look like on the internet. What does it mean to have a secure password, right? These are the basic fundamentals that they have not had access to. And when you think about AI, if we're not giving them access to that, it is going to increase for communities around the world and then the communities that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
And Alejandro, can you talk a little bit about what Verizon's doing around the Innovative Learning School program that you're doing? One of the things I would just want to mention, when we were just chatting about this panel, and we were talking about the Ville School initiative from Verizon, Nakia, when she was an educator in Austin, received a Ville School grant from Verizon. So it was really kind of a full circle moment. But do you want to talk a little bit about the work Verizon's doing there?
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to the sustainability piece that Nakia mentioned, I think that was really much at the heart of when we initiated this program. And I'm very proud to say that we're now onboarding our 13th cohort of schools. We have over 690 schools that have participated in this program. And the program at the core is solving for the digital divide, so making sure that we provide schools with one-to-one devices, connectivity, but more importantly as well, the wraparound professional learning support. Because as a former educator, as a former trainer, I know that if you hand people devices, that doesn't mean that they're going to know how to use them. So making sure that there's training, there's resources for educators to feel comfortable leveraging these devices, and ultimately, we're seeing student learning outcomes from them, which is the goal of the program. And this is something that, again, I mentioned we have the 690 schools. Unfortunately, not every school can be a Verizon Innovative Learning School. Right. So we also have a free educator portal that's called Verizon Innovative Learning HQ. It's verizon.com/learning. It's a website where we've collated a lot of the resources that we've put together in the last decade plus and made it available for free. And we took a very similar approach there, where we have lesson plans, resources, professional development courses for educators to really remove those barriers and make sure that all schools have access to this, not just the schools that have more resources.
Yeah, and I think when we look at a lot of the free resources that industry is putting together for the education space, we do find that it's mostly a larger percentage of Title I schools that are actually accessing this information. So it's great to see industry investing in this work, and it's getting access to help, bring that digital divide, closer to what we don't want it to be. So I think it's really great to see industry really leading in this area. So appreciate the work that both Dell and Verizon are doing, and other partners that are leaning into this space. So when you think about 5 years from now, what would be a regret you might have if you didn't do it with respect to AI readiness for the younger generation? Nakia, you want to go first?
Yes, absolutely. I think they will regret it. Because AI is changing so quickly, there are lots of districts that are behind in terms of setting up an AI policy. I think that the districts that choose a zero AI policy versus I'm going to give it to teachers, or I'm going to provide AI literacy resources so students learn how to use it ethically, they're going to regret not keeping up. Even in legislation right now, Melania released an AI campaign where teachers and students can solve a problem in their community using AI. And so it's coming from the top down, and we have to figure out how to support educators. And so that professional learning piece that you talked about, people don't have the funding and they don't have the time. And so by providing it free and in an open source environment, they're able to do that. And so I just really think that they're going to regret doing this to students. It will be a disservice over time in increasing that gap of who can and who can't.
Yeah, I think that it'll be interesting to see how education evolves in all of this, and how I think there'll be certain districts that become very progressive, and I think that there'll be others that'll be a fast follow, should they show success. But I do agree, I think that's a big risk. How about you, Alejandro?
I think I would echo everything that Nakia just mentioned. And I will also note that, I'm a very avid user of AI tools, and I've seen AI tools really become way more powerful in the last 6 months. So I think I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know what it'll look like, in 5 years from now, but we can only imagine that these tools will continue to be even more capable. So I think that the more time that we spend, outlawing tools or not allowing students to be literate in these tools, I think more widening that gap is going to be. So I think schools will definitely regret it if they don't find ways to regulate these tools in a safe and usable manner for their students. But yeah, I think it would definitely be a disservice to students. So highly encourage districts to network with each other, find other folks that are doing really great things with AI, and also bringing that back to their own districts and their schools.
I think that's great. Well, I want to thank you both, and I want to encourage everyone in the audience, if you're interested and looking to invest in education, and specifically around AI, I encourage you to reach out to Nakia and to Alejandro or myself or other folks from Discovery Education to learn and lean in a little bit more, because I think it takes a collective. And I know both Dell and Verizon are very well-resourced large organizations, but I think we can all start small. And so I encourage you, if you have interest in this kind of future workforce and investment for your workforce, please reach out, and we'd love to talk to you and learn more about what you're doing and share some of the key things that we've been doing and where we've seen success. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.